like Mr. Brown said, or to deter them and anyone else from doing it again, but also to suspend them from having the opportunity to go and be able to have that opportunity. And I think that really when you first start out, you love going, you love the opportunity to go learn and be around your friends and have that social aspect.
Well, here's the reality, and I don't necessarily disagree with you that that was the reality then, but in our society of measurements and students' performance, all of your jobs are contingent upon, and your value are contingent upon students' growth. If they're not there, the question becomes, are they growing?
Right.
And I hear what you're saying.
Right, but I'm saying now it's obviously changed, but I'm thinking when it was originally put in place.
Question is, do we have a suspension problem? Yes, sir.
Last year I was at high school in Anne Arundel County, and we had to, for our school improvement plan, like a whole study on referrals, because we have like a huge problem with referrals, and majority of referrals are given African American males. What we found out was less than 1%, accounting for almost 90% of all the referrals. It's the same kids every single time they're getting the suspensions. So all the other suspensions for kids, what we found out was kids that normally never get suspensions, but because they had a bad day, they got a referral one day, their behavior changed because of it. But the kids who are chronic, their behavior is never going to change, and you're just constantly giving them suspension after suspension, referral after referral, and their behavior is not changing because they just became immune to the punishment.
Okay, so here's the question that I have to ask you guys. So if we suspended consistently, and we didn't see the behavior change, and I've heard this, again, I've had this conversation all over the state. One gentleman brought up to me a thing about office referrals. The question I would ask is, what did we do to manage the behavior? And here's where I think schools struggle. I don't think we put in plans, we monitor plans, we consistently monitor plans, or we monitor whatever interventions or reinforcers that we have. I think that's something we struggle with. And here's the deal. In the new reality, you guys are teachers. But in the new reality, you're probably more case managers, with teaching being a part of what you do, not all of what you do. And I know that we've got teacher preparation programs that are preparing you for instruction, and that's wonderful, but the training that's coming down the track is it's more, it's not just instruction that you need. Everybody hear what I'm saying? Okay. Here's the other thing, and why this is important. Education is the biggest budget item in any local jurisdiction's budget. Baltimore County spends right now $1.6 billion a year on education. Yet, there's about an 80% graduation rate, 82%. Take your pick, whichever number you like. So if I invest, and we're not talking about educators, we're talking about people who make decisions about education, a legislature, a county executive, a senator, a delegate. If I invest $1.6 billion in something and I only get an 80% return, what do you think is going to happen? Got the funding, exactly. So all this stuff becomes even more imperative, particularly at a state board report that was released, actually that I'm a part of, that talked about reducing suspension in this state because there were issues of disproportionality. And under the regs, the state says very clearly, or the state board says very clearly, if you have an issue of disproportionality, which Baltimore County does have, Baltimore County is suspending more students in the state than I think any other jurisdiction, then you must develop a plan that by year 3, you will be out of disproportionality. Or there are sanctions coming from the state, in my assumption. They did talk about what was coming, but they did say you have to be out of it by 3 years. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I was going to say, it seems that we have an overused, outdated tool for an ever-evolving educational system, but we have not yet created tools in place within the school structure, the new evolving school structure, to meet the needs of with these challenges.
I I would argue that it's everybody. It's the challenging children, but it's also the teacher preparation programs who push out teachers who are about instruction. And I'm not saying that you should not be taught about instruction, but if you're not also taught about how to manage the people that you're actually instructing, then it becomes problematic. The assumption or the premise of teacher preparation programs is that all kids come to school and they're ready to learn. Now, how many of y'all can say all of your students are ready to learn? Anybody want to raise their hand? No. I know that wasn't the case with me, and I'm sure it's not the case with you. And to your point, and I believe the young man's point back here from Montgomery County, we have really an office referral problem. Because you can't be suspended without an office referral. And and I didn't really talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it real quickly. The issue of disrespect and subordination. What's disrespect? I have heard all over the state. I've heard, you know what it looks like when you see it. I've heard it's throwing a chair. I've heard it's cussing somebody out. I've heard a lot of different things. But here's the deal. As I drove up the street here, and Lord knows I have a left foot. As I drove up the street here, the speed limit, I believe, was 30 miles an hour. Of course, I pushed the envelope a little bit, so I was at about 42. And if an officer had pulled me over, it's very clear. I was going 42 in the 30. Disrespect, insubordination, how does that work? I come to your class, I roll my eyes, that's disrespect, I go to the office. I go to your class, I say shit, and nothing happens. You tell me, don't say that out loud anymore. I'm just keeping it real. I've had teachers tell me, and let's keep it, it's the last time I'm bringing my daughter. But teenagers, no matter what you do from about 11 to about 17 or 18, I'm going to give you $50.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you to dinner. I'm going to do it. It's something in their genetic code. But here's the deal. There'll be a section for what's in their genetic code. That's the problem. Boys may look a little different, so maybe boys don't suck their teeth. Oh, man, get out of my face with that. But it's all the same behavior. But they're being sanctioned for it, and that's what's problematic about it. If they break the rules, if somebody punches somebody, then yeah, okay, whatever, we need to do it. If they're violent, if they break somebody's windows, whatever, yes. But the subjective stuff of where it's really contingent upon, did me and my wife have a good night last night? Because if we had a good night, then I'm more accepting of stuff. If we didn't, then somebody's going to the office. I mean, let's keep it real. And you know, you guys are telling what you guys' minds are like, because I wasn't even thinking that. But I'm not going to feed into that. So real quick, as we move through stage one, as we start setting the standard in our classrooms, explain why you need these rules, also what your expectation is. Partner with students in developing established rules. When I try to show them a new facility, which is Du Bois Village, which is where all of the boys go who were locked up, I had a rule in my class: don't curse and don't use the N-word. We established that as a rule. We also established that you got to give us 20 push-ups if you say it. And Mr. Murphy was in class and said, damn, because I dropped something, and they said, Mr. Murphy, you owe us 20, and I dropped it out and gave us 20. I never kidded. And I learned eventually that it was quote-unquote corporal punishment, but that was what the boys wanted. Yes, ma'am.
But the point is, a consequence needs to come with education.
Yes.
And these office referrals or suspensions are not coming with some backing of educating them as to why it's happening. So I'm thinking about someone who, let's say we said suspension, someone who keeps getting suspended. Well, eventually it doesn't phase them. It's just like beating a kid. You keep beating the kid, they don't get phased by it unless you take the time to have them understand where it's coming from. And you giving, if you consider corporal punishment, whatever.
That was the state considered that. It wasn't me.
Well, you giving the punishment gives them the idea and the thought behind why this is happening and what a consequence really is. But we're haphazardly kind of giving out these consequences without any backing, if you will.
And to your point, we had a real quick conversation about the N-word. And I asked him to define it, and we had a real big conversation about it. It was actually And that particular, there were 71 young men, and there was one white boy from Carroll County who was arrested. And I said, if he called you that, y'all would beat him down. And they said yes. And I said, that's unacceptable. So then we got to decide defining what the word was. So, you know, my boys, you know, they street pharmaceutical salesmen and all this stuff. And we redefined the N-word. We redefined it. It means something totally different. I said, oh, really? I said, it means something totally different? They said, yeah. I said, well, I'm your family, right? Yeah, we love you, Mr. Murphy. You are peoples, you know. I said, if y'all saw me on the street, y'all wouldn't let me have, no, Mr. Murphy, you be straight and safe in our neighborhood. I've seen some of them in the neighborhood, and they'd be like, no, that's my man. That's my old teacher. Let him go. So I said to them, I said, why don't y'all call me the N-word? Right. And they said, because, well, you smart, you got money, you got, oh, it does mean what it means. Oh, shut up, Mr. Murphy, we won't talk about that no more. So the lesson has to, to your point, the lesson has to be a part of that. So we're sanctioning, and again, we're not teaching, we're sanctioning. That's all we're doing.
So that's an essential.
Yes, that's a suspension officer. Real quickly, we had a young boy, 8 years old. He was 5'1", 125 pounds. He was sent to the office because he was looking at his teacher menacingly. Now, let me give you the background. The young man, let me give you the background. The young man was 2 weeks into the school, 2 weeks into this particular school. He did not have any friends in the class. Class, you guys know how kids come up to you after class is done and they want to talk about everything under the sun. Jalen was standing back just looking at his teacher as all of his peers engaged the teacher. Teacher gets done, or kids dissipate, they go their separate way. He's standing there. She says, you need to go to the office because you are threatening me. Fortunately, we had a principal who was smart enough and wise enough to say, menacingly is not really a reason to suspend or put a kid in ISS or anything like that. But the question is, how does that become a reality for an 8-year-old? And he boo-hooed and he cried and all those things, but that's just a quick example. The whole office referral notion and what we have not defined as a state, and it's not just Maryland, it's across the country. You look at Virginia, all these different places, there aren't really concrete definitions for anything. And so kids it's like a catch-all. Yes, real quickly, sir.
Somebody told me a situation, a teacher, not here at another school, told me a situation where she's a white female and a student was coming up going like this, saying, I'm gonna cook you, like walking towards her, and she felt threatened, so she wrote a referral. The principal said, like, talked to her and said, you just don't understand, like, the culture and what the student was doing. Apparently cook means that he's gonna make fun of you, but the way they're walking towards this, like, the teacher, there's no punishment given to the child, but the teacher, like, felt threatened. If you feel threatened, you know, like, yeah, I feel like, yeah, you might not understand the culture and what the intent was, but if you feel threatened in the situation, I feel like that's like a tough call too.
Here's where I agree, but I disagree. And here's the deal. For my students, I'm 20, 30 years old in some cases.
Yeah.
I had to listen to their dialogue. I'm not a Master P fan, and I might be showing my age because Master P ain't even, I don't even know people know who Master P is anymore. But when I was teaching, Master P, Mystical, all them cats were the hottest thing going today. I did not listen to them, but I listened to my kids talk about them. And so I learned even their lingo, their language, whatever it was, so I could discern what was a real threat and what wasn't a real threat. Say again? Yes, how they're saying it. People are demonstrative. People speak different ways. It's all about, it's about communication. We'll talk about that real quickly. I know I got like 7 or 8 minutes left. Review class and talk about that. Okay, so this is real quick, the relationship framework. So as a teacher, you got to communicate safety, consistency, communication, and care. That's your action. What you will get out of the students is trust, investment, confidence, performance. And these are all emotions. And again, we're talking about people who are focused and are driven by their emotions. This is what it looks like. I know I'm rushing because I got like 8 minutes. One of the big things here, staff is frequently absent. It's very difficult to build a relationship with a teacher, with a student, if you ain't ever here? And I know that doesn't happen here. I know I've been in other schools where it happened. I know it doesn't happen in once a minute. Communication, and this is verbal communication only. Expressing needs, da-da-da. Most communication is nonverbal, and this is probably one of the most important things. Nonverbal. Some say as high as 82%. Nonverbal communication takes place in many ways: facial expression, body language, proximity touch, eye contact. I've been in schools in this state where you guys are in class, you guys are the students, and I'm the teacher. I don't engage you. You guys are over there behind whatever wall it is, and I'm not suggesting that if you do that, but I've seen this in a number of schools we've been in the state. The teacher does not leave their area. It's almost like the teacher is like enclosed in glass or something, or the students are enclosed in glass, and the only time they engage the students is to give them a book, and they oftentimes don't even give them the book, they tell them to come get it from them. What is that communicating? What's he communicating? He might be communicating lazy. He might be communicating that he's just a little bit too rotund to roll over and keep himself situated. So he might be saying that. Say again. Oh, he said from myself. What's he communicating? Tired. Tired. Looking sad. The point is, particularly with these slides, is the fact that everybody not communicates. Animals not communicate. We are animals, but even we can understand language even from animals and nonverbal communication with animals outside our species. Real quickly, nonverbal communication reinforces stimulus words and nonverbal alignment. So I can say something, I can say, I really like that pink sweater you have on, and I can tap you on the shoulder. That's going to reinforce that what I said actually is real. Contradict. I can say, I like that pink sweater. Or I can roll my eyes, whatever it is. So that doesn't reinforce it. So the question becomes, what are the nonverbal communicators you are doing with your students? So are you saying, I believe all kids can learn, but you're not engaging one or two particular students because, emphasize the sender's message. I believe in this. Safety, physical, emotional, cognitive. I'm going to tell you a real quick story. I was in the 7th grade. I'm scarred by this right now. 7th grade. I said to my social studies teacher, Mr. Vandenberg, Mr. Vandenberg, we were studying the Second World War. Mr. Vandenberg, in chapter 5, it said the United States expanded westward. I said, I don't understand. Please explain to me the difference between Hitler conquering westward and the United States expanding westward. He looked at me. He said, Robert, get out. I said, what this is legitimate. I didn't do anything this time. What did I do? He said, you were being disrespectful. Get out. In that particular time, I wasn't cognitively safe. So in that class, what I learned is I will never ask another, in my opinion, question or thought-provoking question again. Because I'm going to be sanctioned. Now, I thought my question was high. But at that particular time, clearly he did not. And I was sent to the office. Now, I didn't go to the office. I just walked the hallways with an experience. Emotional safety. Do kids feel safe in your presence? So are you making fun of them? Do they know, I had a young man who was very, very impoverished. So his feet smelled through his shoes. You remember James?
I do.
Yes. How do we make those young people feel? Because that's the real question. So if James knows that, everybody knows James' feet are smelling through the shoes. But if James comes over to you and you, or James, why don't you stay over there and I'll come over to you. But I'm going to sit here and talk to you. What am I saying to James? You stink. So is he emotionally safe in my room? And let's keep it real on the behavior process. Let's go back to this real quickly. forward real quick. So anyway, this is what trust looks like. Investment. I'm rushing through these because I know we have time. Emotional engagement is measured pretty much as feelings and motivation. So our kids emotionally invested or engaged in your school. Behavior is about their actions, habits, routine. And cognitive is values, beliefs, and skill development. I can tell you with your most challenging students, if you don't have this, you will never get here or there. You gotta have this. Some engagement statements tell me more about that. What do you mean when you say what else? How do you know? All these things are validating the student. All these things are asking them what he thinks. I think oftentimes when we get an education, we're often talking about, well, you know, we're so in love with whatever the materials are, whatever it is, that we don't give them the opportunity really to speak what they feel. This is an article from the University of Finland. Basically, how to explain highly arousing events, synchronized activity in the network supporting vision, attention, and sense of touch. So if you got a hot lesson plan, whatever it is, kids are going to, whatever's going on in their brain will support vision, attention, and touch. That is, neural clues help people understand others' intentions and actions and allow the person to tune in with them. What are you communicating nonverbally? Positive process, same thing as a negative. De-escalating techniques, and I know I'm running late, I'm running low on time. I care about you, I want you to be successful. We are on the same team. This is small, it's not going to make us any larger. Clearly articulating rules and expectations. Real quickly, we had a young lady at one of all the schools, Sade, I had not seen Sade in probably 5 years. Sade was standing on North Avenue, she had her shirt unbuttoned all the way down to here, and Sade was developed, so everything was, all of her goodies were on display. As I pulled into the parking lot, she looked at me and she said, Mr. Murphy, and I said, Sade, and she said, Mr. Murphy, and I said, Sade, and by the time I parked my car to get out, she had a turtleneck on. Now again, I had not seen her in 6 years, but Sade remembered the expectation that I had for her way back in the day. Yes, we're taking model appropriate behaviors. Let's keep it real. Kids know in the building who's sleeping with who got marriage problems, who got smoking problems, who got drinking problems. Let's keep it real. They know. Silence, eliminating unnecessary power struggles, getting non-traditional leaders on your side, which is huge, particularly when you start talking about particular student groups. Those 4, 3s, and 2s over there, if you can get into those guys and attach to them, they will make your whole life easier in your classroom. Leveraging relationships and personal strategies. I'm out of time, so I'm going to keep moving forward. Real quickly, if we communicate with consistency, commitment, clarity, communicate, we can cultivate change and challenge our students. That's my contact information if you have any questions. Thank you. It is lunchtime. Thank you guys for being great. Mr. Brown, do you have something you want to?
As you all know, that approximately 1:15, the next presentation will take place. It's also around cultural proficiency. Cultural proficiency is something that is an issue statewide. This isn't something that we're just doing individually at Winterville Middle School. This is something that a variety of counties across the state that they're working on because of the gap and the disproportionality not only in behaviors but in instruction and achievement for minority students or students of different cultures. Please take these presentations seriously so that you can reflect when you go back to your classrooms, when you plan your lessons, and as you go and engage with students.
Can I ask something real quickly, Mr. Brown? People think cultural proficiency, they think, oh, I'm black. No. I'm black. I know what black kids go through. That's not necessarily the case. Just as if you're white, you know what all white kids go through. Cultural proficiency is really about you understanding kind of what your biases are, what you believe, what you don't believe, and how that sometimes projects onto other people. So that's it.
And one last thing, when it comes down to the various biases that we all have. Some of you were courageous enough to raise your hand at different points during this demonstration, this professional development. Some of you had your own feelings and chose not to raise your hand because maybe what your peers would think or because myself and other administrators are in the room. You need to confront that. You need to go home and confront your own biases regarding minority students or students of different cultures. Because you're not doing anyone any good to pretend you think one way when you know you think another way.
And we have evidence that you don't.
You're not doing anyone any good. If you want to improve upon being an instructor in this building and building relationships with students, you need to confront your own elephant in the room. The things that stare you in the face every morning when you get up and look in the mirror. This isn't about putting on a front. This isn't about our school simply saying, well, I have Mr. Murphy in, we're good to go. We all know that individually, we have our own biases. I'm going to leave you with one of my personal own biases. It's not even a bias. I have to be honest. When I don't go to Fells Point because I feel uncomfortable when I'm in a bar with 99% Caucasians. I feel uncomfortable. That's my own personal thing. It's nothing against Caucasians. It's just I feel a level of discomfort. And I think some of you may feel the same level of discomfort, I guarantee you, if you were to go down north in Green Mountain. You would feel a little bit uncomfortable. I feel comfortable. I have no problem with that, but yet I can't go down Fells Point or I feel a particular way. You need to confront your own feelings if you want to improve upon yourself. If you want to become a better instructor, if you want to service our students better, you have to confront your own feelings, why you feel that way, and whether or not that's really justified, or whether I created that in my mind because of a bad experience here or a bad experience there. Challenge yourselves first before you challenge the students to adapt to you. Once again, thank you, Mr. Murphy, for coming in.
If I walk up to you and say, I got to hear from you, first of all, So, part of the reason I don't put anything up, this is the very first activity, is because I want to get engaged, people and see what they are really. And most of my experience with this activity has been negative. It's all, it's rooted in deficit behavior, it's not rooted in asset behavior. Or asset behavior, asset behavior. It's always angry, lazy. Some of those, it's consistent. You guys were the group today. I did it in Orlando, I got the same thing. I did it in North Carolina a couple times back.
Well, I guess I feel good that
You are one of the very few that, I had a young lady who was talking to me, she said, we kind of processed the activity, she said, you know, I tried to do something positive, she said, every thought I had was positive. And so we processed that. And part of the whole talk about all the images that we see is because those are the things, if you don't interact with someone, your opinion is based off of what you see, not necessarily your personal experience. And unfortunately, what we see oftentimes is not good. So we see somebody like Michael Vick, and somebody might project all of their feelings from Michael Vick onto all black men. But we don't look at Timothy McVeigh and say he's the definition of all. Or we don't look at Catholic churches or Catholic bishops. I don't know what you're doing, but we don't look at them and say that defines Catholicism. But black men and oftentimes black people are defined by one person. I mean, an example of that is we were talking about this morning. Color lines and girls on the black woman. He only did it because he's black. So black man he could not think that he's competent. He could not believe that he is the best example or the best person for the job. It's got to be only because he's black. And that's some of the, and unfortunately that type of language permeates our whole society.
thanks. Maybe to cut down the discussion section, because we lost so much of the
I know. And normally the discussion part doesn't take that long. But you guys were very opinionated. Actually, I enjoyed it, but it did take longer than that. And I probably should have cut out actually some of the other slides, because the stuff about your suspension stuff, I got to pull that stuff. So, but yeah, it was a rich conversation. And actually, you guys were probably the most honest group that I've had, because in most cases, people read those first few slides, and there isn't a whole lot of dialogue. Oh, no, I don't agree. And that's it. They don't really elaborate. You guys were great enough to elaborate and to discuss why you agreed, and then you piggyback on other people and all that stuff. So that was good.
And I think sometimes for high school, it's almost
Please phone back office, my person is 647. Eloise, please,
it's not like,
thank you.
I see by students, I'm not like, well, there's a black boy and a white one. I mean, or I think that the projection of all the black students get one person projected on them. That's going to happen more like the high school I grew up in. There was like one black kid in the whole school.
Yeah.
And then there's not a lot. The only black people that we're seeing on a consistent basis are those on TV. It's all negative. Here, it's, I have all my students, and then
Some of your colleagues said, why are we even having this conversation? That's what was written in here. Like, why are we having this conversation? Why is it always about blacks? And that was part of the reason I made the point that, quite frankly, that's who's at the school. I mean, if this school were 50-50, I did something in North Carolina recently, and the school was 50-50 Latino and black, and the conversation was about blacks and Latinos. It's really about who your student body is. And the reality is that if I come back here 5 years from now, and you guys are 50-50, and you'll be a black Latino, or if it's white and Latino, it'll be a white and Latino conversation. But people don't want to have that conversation. I mean, that's just, unfortunately, that's the reality. Even in this building, where 100% of your student body, or 99.9% is African American people, say, well, why are we having this conversation? This is who the population is.
But I think that people that are here are less likely to have that bias. I don't know how to take that call.
Yeah, I know that I don't normally let anybody get the car. That isn't what this says, though. What this says is there are not necessarily the majority, it may be a 50-50 split, maybe 55-45 as to asset versus deficit. And here's the deal, when I do this with white students, when I do it with every group, Asians are always positive, intelligent, learners, disciplined, Whites are a blend of discipline, smart, When I get to Black and Latinos, I always get to essentially lazy, welfare, you name it, violent, gangbangers, you name it. It's always a negative conversation, a negative feedback, more so than positive. It's unfortunate because when I had students, I didn't sure white didn't make a difference to me, and my students knew that and responded as such. But unfortunately, we do have people. And the reality is I didn't bring this up in the presentation, but the AP research that was recently done, where they said I think it was 54% of the country has explicit anti-Black attitudes, and then I think it was explicit, like 53% explicit anti-Hispanic or Latino. Those things play out, and how they play out. This isn't just like some isolated thing that's over here that does not happen. These things play out in our daily interactions, and that's the rest. I maybe should have added that to the presentation. But people think of race and they think of slavery, and all it is about, I openly say, and it's a lot more subtle things that happen. I'll give you an example. A colleague and I were having a discussion, and he said to me, 13 out of 14 is 100%. He said, yeah, it is. And so literally we went back and forth for a minute, and I said, 13 out of 13 is 100%, 14 out of 14 is 100%. And he literally he argued until there was an Asian lady there, she said something, and he was like, whatever. White guy said, yeah, last time I checked, Robert is right, 13 out of 13 is 100%, 14 out of 14. Oh, okay, yeah. That's a subtle thing, but it had to be validated by this other white man, who I'm very cool with. I'm actually cool with both of them, but it had to be validated through this guy, and not that I would have taken it my way. So it's the subtle stuff that I think is what we got to manage. And I don't know that we are going to manage this.
I mean, stereotypes are there for a reason. I mean, people became everybody's stereotypes.
I agree.
And there's some validity to them. I mean, it's not like they're totally just a shot in the dark. I mean, not that. Why do you get that about Asian students? Well, I taught in schools in China, university, very, very, very different culture. I mean, there's a very education oriented. So those kids, and they're going to be the minority, so they're already different, and then they're going to listen to their parents. So I think that's why I get that. There's validity to it.
There is validity, but there's also.
I mean, it's not like I had some really terrible students in China as well, but there's validity to that stereotype. It comes from somewhere. It's not based on nothing. It's not that they're always 100% accurate, but they're not always based on something.
I would argue that if you took, and it depends on what kind of Asian students you're talking about. Because if you're talking about Southeast Asian students, I don't necessarily know if their performance is the same as Japanese or in some cases Korean or even Chinese students. So even within that group, there are some outliers. There's differences. And here's how that plays out in class. So I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. And here's how that plays out. So if I'm in class and I'm grading papers, because of my belief, he might have got this wrong, I may not necessarily understand this point, but he's a good student. So versus taking off of that, I'm going to be neutral, or I might even give him a point for that, even though. Now here's how it plays out for the African American student. If I don't care for you, if I don't think that you're really all that brighter, then there is no accommodation. It's, well, you didn't do it, click. And then that's again, that's not just black students, that's Latinos. That's actually even poor white students, to be totally honest. it crosses, if you look at kind of what our issues are in school.
But is that kind of decision coming from the teacher about student behavior in the classroom? I mean, if I ever see, I'm ever just putting a call on a grade, well, it can kind of go either way. I try not to do that, but it's gonna be more about like, well, how does this kid perform on a daily basis? Are they a jerk purposely in my classroom? And if they are, then I'm less likely to give them that. But all my students are black. It's not like I'm saying, well,
No, I get, but I guess my question would be, why should that matter, whether they're an ass or not an ass? That's the question. Yeah, that's the
But if
question.
you're saying it's about race, then that's one. But I mean, I try not to do it. I mean, the papers I graded, they just know the names in the back.
Yes.
And I graded it, and that's it. I don't know the papers. So it's kind of, well, whoever did this, then I'll see later. Sometimes when I get it, it's perfect. Oh, this is why. If it doesn't surprise me.
Yes.
Or if it gets really bad, I flip it, oh, well, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
You know, very seldom.
Here's you seem to be a reflective young man, and you seem to be devoted to your craft. The question becomes when we have people sometimes who aren't devoted to it, what does that look like? You are, this is just my observation of what I'm hearing from you. You are in a profession that is what you either love or at least like to do. I don't know that we have everybody in education that loves education.
You know, our system is great. So
Exactly.
people stay even if they don't want to.
Exactly. And so that's my point to you, not necessarily about teachers like you who are able to reflect and who are about growth, but to those who aren't about growth. There was a group sitting in this room who didn't care, who didn't want to hear what was being said, who weren't engaged in what was being said. The only time they were engaged is when we did the activity where you guys got out with the cars. They know who they are, and I would probably bet that some of those things came from, some of the cards that were probably negative came from maybe that table. It might not have been, but they were disengaged because they didn't want to hear this conversation. So I hear what you're saying. I don't necessarily disagree with everything that you said. I'm just saying you have the ability to reflect, and that's a wonderful skill to have in these types of conversations or in whatever you do in life. But oftentimes many of us don't have that ability, and so it becomes about the other person and not about me. And that was, I believe, kind of what Mr. Brown was saying when he was standing there with everybody. It's like, you need to take a real hard look at yourself. And some people will, some people won't. So.
All right.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It's good talking to you.
You too.
Hello, man. How are you? But he waited patiently too.
I'm waiting for a resource teacher.
Ah, okay.
You know what I think it is number on the card? I want you to go out here. Becoming the secretary.
I've been seeing,
Okay.
young men see the same.
All right, are you okay?
And I didn't say this in this position, but part of what I try.
Okay. You know what, no, that's not about me, but I'm thinking, I'm just thinking, he may be at lunch, but I'll call for
That's
him.
what.
His name is Lovett.
And,
So I'll call for him and see if he can come down and get him.
and Jamie.
Okay. And then
That's
we're
what
ready
we
to
see them
start. I
successful.
think Brown said at 1:15. Okay. All right,
Yes.
then. All right, thank you.
Yes. I agree.
I'm gonna bring some sign-in sheets over. Just a moment. And,
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And that's really because we're honest with you. And you. Yeah.
Mr. Lovett, you're needed in the cafeteria. Mr. Lovett, you're needed in the cafeteria.
Now you can. Until you've actually experienced it, I would really, it's sad too. Yes. Yes. Well, the other piece is, and that's what I was just saying the other day, is that if you are invested in your, if you know what you want.
Needed in the cafeteria.
If you know what you love, like they are, yes, and if you are not willing to,
And you need the Elmo as well, right?
then they will,
You need the-
they will pick up on that too.
Oh, no, I mean, yeah, no. And it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of